This is Heroine Addiction, presented by That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster, where we cover romance and drama manhwa, and it's only a crime if you're not hot. I'm Isekai Sensei-Sama, aka Brad, and as always, I'm joined by Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
I'm a dark, tall, handsome prince who will do literally anything for you, and it's not clear why.
Well, today we are covering Solitary Lady, also known as Untouchable Lady. There's been some drama for the naming.
I don't know anything about the original Korean, but I think Untouchable Lady works a lot better considering the story, but
well,
I guess it has two connotations, though.
At the beginning, I would say solitary, but it definitely, it changes. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
So, as always, I will read the summary, and then we'll get into it. Noblewoman Hillis Inoden has had many lives so far, 7 to be exact, but she has always been regarded the same in all of them, meek, submissive, and a pest. But in her 8th resurrection, she no longer bends to the nobles that encircle her, nor does she continue to live in the shadows of her wicked brother and half-sister. With a sacred power passed down from her lineage and the title of the family head, she sets out for revenge and to change the grave destiny that awaits her. Yeah, so, Solitary Lady.
Solitary Lady, like, this one has, like, sort of changed my perspective in that now every time I play through a video game again to get a better ending, is that canonically the character is reborn to live again. Only this time now they know, like, you got to do the bosses in the right order.
I mean, maybe. That's sort of what she does. I guess we should give a important spoilers for the first couple chapters, but so this story takes place in some kind of magical late mid-century European-like place, but there's these 4 families that are sort of like, oh right, because there's no king, so there was a king and he was like a god, Jesus. I guess, and hundreds of years ago, the 4, I don't know if they would be considered dukes, but that's probably a good comparison. The head families, I guess they decided he had too much power or something, or they wanted his power, and like ate him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was into that. I was like, I didn't expect this to go there, but it was like, well, the thing is, I'm not joking when I say the king is Jesus, because there is a ton of like weird Christian imagery, because it's like the whole like body and blood of Christ. Like they do that. Yeah. They have a communion, except it's not a symbolic thing. They literally eat and drink him.
And I don't think he was down for that, as opposed to Jesus.
No.
But so these 4 noble families, they basically run everything because there's no king. And so the head of each family has these magical powers that come from the fact that they ate the king. And each different family represents like a season. The seasons of weather, spring, summer, fall, winter. And their powers sort of go about that. Actually, that makes me wonder, what does the Verget? How does that power make sense?
I guess it gets darker in fall. I didn't like that one either.
Yeah, that one's a little
also
confusing.
It's unclear what his power is. It just seems to be like telekinesis, but it looks like darkness.
But they all seem to have similar powers, but they're just like themed differently.
Yeah. It's
anyway,
reskin. I gotta say, like, if nobody has, this is a free meme for the Otome Isekai community. Like, you remember when Rudy Giuliani booked the wrong 4 seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just Photoshop, what's his name, Diego, standing at that podium instead of Rudy Giuliani. And that's the political dynamic of this family.
Yeah, pretty much. So we've got these four families, and they choose the next head of the family by the child that basically manifests the family powers. And in this particular instance, where we find this story, the powers have manifested in Hillis, who is the first wife's child, along with Ricardo, her brother. I don't remember if there was a particular reason for this, but everybody decided that Hillis couldn't possibly be in charge, even though she has the powers. And so
the dad hates Hillis because Hillis, the mom died giving birth to Hillis. And so it's that old trope of
stupid trope.
Yeah, he hates the child that killed his wife.
It's like, was this what your wife would have wanted?
Yeah. I mean, I know it happens. Like people break when they have a certain tragedy, but this guy's like got it all together except for that one thing.
I'll give you. So there's another series. I think it's called Taming the Tyrant. Very similar plot to this, where the heroine goes back in time. The dad and the brothers treat her terribly. In a recent chapter, the dad, I forget exactly how it happened, but he had some kind of vision of his dead wife, and it's like actually her visiting from like the spirit realm or whatever. And she's like, how's our baby girl? I gave my life for her. You've been treating her well. And the dad's like, oh shit.
Oh, I thought you'd be really mad at her for killing you. We had a real we should have talked about that.
So
we should have talked about that before we had kids.
Yeah, that I read that chapter. I was like, yes, this is exactly right. Why does this happen all the time? The dads are like, oh, you killed my wife. It's like, no, that's a baby. What are you talking about, you idiot?
I think it's that. Like, I know it happens. I know it certainly happens. But it's that thing where it's like misplaced guilt. This isn't written that well. The Diego character is just like, he exists to constantly get hit by a bus. I mean, like, that's the joke. Like,
he's
everything.
Really good at it.
Yeah. So with him, it's like, yeah, he's not a really well-written character. But the way to do it is that the person who is blaming the child it's really misplaced guilt.
Yeah.
They're upset that they couldn't do anything. They feel some responsibility because they, got them pregnant in the first place.
But they're still idiots.
It has to be the child's fault, or else they have to acknowledge their own psychological trauma. And a lot of people are really good at doing anything to avoid acknowledging their own trauma.
So, yeah. So, Diego, the current head of the family, Hillis's dad, is like, no, it can't possibly be Hillis. We got to figure out a way around this. And they do figure out some way through the manifestation of another family's powers in some weird stuff going on to sort of take the power from Hillis and give it to Ricardo, killing Hillis in the process, basically.
I don't think it ever worked, though. It never gave the power to Ricardo. It just turns Hillis into like a weird monster.
Yeah. And so this happens over and over again because Hillis keeps going back and reliving this. And for some reason, it takes her a really long time to figure out what's going on.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was like, every other Otome Isekai heroine, like, they got one life and then they got it.
Yeah, the second go around, they'd be like, oh, I know what's going on here. But for some reason, Hillis, for many lives in a row, is like, what do I have to do to get them to love me? And it's like, she's doing good on the 8th time. She got it figured out. But it's weird that it took that long.
This is a little bit of a tangent. And it's kind of a weird recommendation because, like, I feel like one is targeted at boys and one is targeted at girls. But Tim Rogers is a guy who analyzes video games and does these really, like, 10-hour-long video essays. One of the video games he did was called Tokimeki Memorial. And it's a Japanese dating game. And he did not want to use a guide, so he vowed to play through it as many times as it took to get, like, the hardest to get girl. And he realizes, like, halfway through, he's like, my most fun playthrough was the playthrough where I just went with the girl that I was, like, most compatible with. He's like, but by the time I had to change everything about my personality to wind up with the right girl, and, like, you have to do things on this day, and you have to calculate and, like, spreadsheets and everything. And he's like, and I got to the end and I realized it was a lie. And that's the vibe I was getting, was like, this is, like, the most, not dating sim, because the romance isn't really like she could wind up with multiple guys, but it has that vibe of those decision tree based games where you think you're doing a good thing, and if you always pick the Paragon path, you think you'll wind up at the good ending, and it's like, nope, dead end. So you try to do a few different things, and it's like, nope, dead end. And so she's just been took her 7 goes, but now she's got it nailed. She's got her spreadsheets. She's got a walkthrough.
You say that, but basically all she does on the 8th time is go, hey, I'm actually going to use my powers now.
Well, the one thing I liked is they did the time where she just goes nuts and kills everybody.
Yeah, that was like 6 or 7, right?
Yeah.
So it was pretty close to the end.
Yeah, so we already got that out of our system. Like, this isn't the evil playthrough necessarily. Right. She's still using the power tactically in this life, but she's not taking shit.
Right.
And that is very rewarding. Like, I think that's the hook for this whole thing, is seeing her manifest the power and being like, nope. And the other thing is her look and her power reminded me a lot of, I think his name was Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho, the Rose Whip guy.
Okay, I guess.
I think I just really liked that character, and I was like, Rose Whips, I'm in.
I mean, the whip is probably the least of Hillis's power at this point.
Though I like when she uses the whips to, like, I don't know, like the psychic tendrils. That's the thing. They're all basically telekinesis, just she controls vines instead of an invisible hand. But the powers are also really poorly defined. Everybody can teleport. So that's the crazy thing to me is, like, I mean, she's definitely doing it the most, but it's we haven't got a whole lot of explanation for the Summer family, the Kalikia, because their head is, like, sick, and so she's in bed all the time. Mm-hmm. And the other family members that have manifested some sort of power, lower level powers, they don't have, like, the full head of the family power. But yeah, so Hillis teleports all the time. Axion Verget teleports all the time. And you said their fall, right? I guess that's the only other one that would fit. But their power is basically darkness. Yeah, their fall, and I figured it would be something like death or spooky themed.
Maybe.
That's the fall is the harvest. It's the ending of the good times. And then the Winter family just shoots bricks of ice, but also ice teleports.
The Parvanons. And yeah, they have an interesting situation because the head of the family there is like he's got all of the powers, but his powers are sort of fading, and they're brothers, right? Christian, Christian is like, he takes over, but I think they've set it up as like his power isn't as strong as the other heads of the family, because the power is sort of split between him and his brother, who he's locking up now to take over. But yes, he also teleports around, and it's just like they use the teleportation all the time to just go wherever. And it almost seems silly, because it's like you could just go to these different places. Although, they did establish that like when they teleport, they leave like traces behind. Like with Hillis, for the spring, you can smell the spring in the air. So I imagine like if Christian teleports with his winter powers, it'll be really cold there or something.
There's a thing that happens in a lot of these quasi like magical girl-esque like power sets where they can all teleport as a way of getting into and out of scenes, and then they never do that during a fight.
Yeah.
Because teleporting is like arguably a way better power, certainly a way better power than what the Kalikia family has, which is like they put all their stats in martyrdom.
Yeah.
So I'm not even clear how they fight.
In the one of the most recent chapters of Villains Are Destined to Die, the prince is like, "Hey, teleport us out of here," and she thinks to herself, I can't do that. The game system teleports me. I don't know how to teleport myself."
Well, there you go. That at least explains it. It's not time for me to teleport. So
yeah.
Do you want to talk about the side characters that are like, I don't know what's going on with them? The Gabrielle and Rodrigo, is that his name? Something
I wanted to touch on is like the fact that there are so few. It seems like there's so few other people in the world. Like there's a couple other like side families that are like the branch families of these four main ones, and there's some servants and stuff like that. But like besides that, there's no other people in this world. Like they never go into town or like travel. It's always like, oh, we're going to this estate. Oh, we're going to this estate. Oh, we're going to go to this secret four families magic area. And like, so there's no connection to the world. It's literally just like these four families, what's going on with them.
So I noticed that, and I couldn't decide if I really liked it or if I thought it was lazy. And I think I'm going to go on the side of I liked it, but I don't know if it was intentional. There's a theme going on of like the king obviously was not happy to have been eaten.
Yeah.
And he has sort of trapped them in this Groundhog Day scenario. And it centers around Hillis, but like it's not just that she went back and got reincarnated. The entire world resets every time she dies. They're all stuck in the loop.
Yeah.
None of them can get out. And so the disconnect from the real world, it starts to feel like suffocating after a little while. And you're starting to sense like the trap these families are caught in. Like it is all about them. There is no world outside of them. They did this thing and they're stuck.
I do wonder if that's intentional from the author to sort of separate that out. I think from a storytelling perspective, the outside world isn't really necessary, so it sort of makes sense to just like ignore that because the story's not about the outside world. But at the same time, if you want to establish a setting, if you want to make the story feel more realistic and everything. Like, you would do that. You would have them, have Hillis and Axion go on a date. Even if it's not a date, maybe they have to go and talk to an information broker or something, so they have to go into town. But, like, that doesn't exist for whatever reason.
Yeah,
so if it's on purpose, that makes sense. But if it's not on purpose, it's lazy. So
yeah,
it's like,
that's the thing. Like, I like the limbo vibe, because I would kind of compare it to, again, another weird one is Chainsaw Man, where, like, Chainsaw Man, what year is it?
Actually, it's 1999. They did actually establish that.
Oh, that's good. But, like, for a while there, it's like so much of the Chainsaw Man world has been, like, screwed with by the destroying of the demons and everything, and that they exist in this weird limbo too, where it's like, it's not hell, it's not certainly not heaven, but you just stagnate. You just stagnate, and that's what this world is. And I like it. It's the right vibe for this story. I think what could be done in the future. Now, I'm sure the web novel's already written, so I don't know. But, like, what I would be looking forward to is some confirmation that that's what's going on, and some more dread. Like, I want the king to be a little meaner, almost.
Yeah, they don't. They sort of just, when all of the stuff with the king starts going down, it's sort of more just like, hey, you guys did this to yourselves. Good luck with all of that, and less of like, I'm doing this to you, and I'm gonna get you,
Yeah, I can't tell if the king likes Hillis or not.
I think
he
first
set
of
up
all, they look very, very similar, which is obviously a thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of like, I don't know how much agency the king actually has in any of this, because he shows up as like a spirit, and it's very wishy-washy of like,
well, I was going to say, not that it matters a ton. Is the king a woman?
I mean, it's probably, I mean, you already said Jesus, but it's probably more like a God kind of thing, where it's like, doesn't matter. Woman,
yeah, I got an androgynous vibe. Like, there are times where the king shows up and they look like a pretty man. It doesn't, the gender doesn't really matter, but I did notice that all of the family's heads are referred to as Lord, regardless of gender. There's no lady title. And so I wondered, like, there was something going on between the head of are they the Rosentine family? Am I mixing up my isekais? What's their last name?
Rosentine is...
No, Inoden. Rosentine would be better, right? Because it's like roses. But no. Inoden. The original head of Inoden, the one who betrayed the king, seemed to be like the closest to the king, and that's another like Christian imagery, like, Judas betrayed him with a kiss.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, like, was there a romantic involvement between the king and the original head of Inoden that made this like doubly betrayal?
Maybe. But then in that regard, the king should be like favorable to Hillis, because she's doing what he wants now, basically.
I think he is favorable to the extent that he's giving her a path to salvation. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately she'll get the quest to collect the 99 pieces of divinity, which when I heard 99 pieces of divinity, I was like, oh, so we're going to be here a while.
Not necessarily.
That's a lot of divinity.
I question whether or not, like, how much does the king actually have to do with the looping? And is it just that Hillis is the first one to have so fully manifested the powers that the looping is happening because of that, and less, anyone actually doing anything.
Yeah, I couldn't really decide how much of the Christ stuff is aesthetic versus theme, because it's obviously pulling from Jesus imagery, but I don't know how. Like, I don't know if the king is supposed to be a messiah. I don't know if it's this. This is the words about books and me coming out. I don't know how much of it is this author really trying to do a big important theme, and how much of it is just like, that looks really cool.
I don't know if you can really go with like, does it look cool? Because it is an adaptation. So like, you can't really go like, oh, it looks cool because it was just words before.
Well, even in words, like, you borrow the imagery, I guess. There is something kind of deeply ingrained in culture, because I know Korea has a huge Christian population. For Asia, they've got probably one of the biggest. And so, like, the Gothic cathedral, the stained glass, the body and blood, like, these are all like mythological themes, unless you believe in it, and it's a religious theme. That like, they have power. They would evoke an emotional response in an audience, and they do, because it connects it to something more. And so I know some of that is intentional, but some of it is probably just like edge, where they're like, yeah, this is, because when we talk about the romance, I'm gonna talk about edge. Like, this, I get the vibe that this is written by somebody much younger than me, because this is the kind of romance I would have written when I was like 16.
Obviously, that's not something that we can really know, unless they're out there. But I haven't looked into that.
It's just very like toxic love, very like Harley Quinn and Joker.
You think?
I don't like the way they interact. So he is Harley Quinn. He is like broken and way too attached to her, and I'm like, dude, this is not good for you.
Okay, but I have to disagree to an extent, because this is a little spoilery. So if you haven't read up to like chapter 60 or whatever, you might want to skip ahead. But they establish that he is sort of regaining his memories. So Hillis has been the only one who remembers anything, for the most part, throughout all of these reincarnations. And they show that every once in a while someone gets a feeling of like, oh, something happened before, but when? What's going on? And it's like deja vu and all that kind of stuff. But Axion sort of starts to remember in a more concrete way. And so I think what's going on is he is attracted to her because of the interactions that they had in the past, where she was the meek lady, and she was someone who needed to be protected. And
he sees just the lost little girl in her.
I mean, to some extent, yeah.
The difference between the Harley Quinn and Joker comparison, I guess, is that Hillis is capable of growth. The Joker's never going to change. The Joker's never going to be able to love Harley Quinn the way she deserves to be loved. Harley Quinn becomes like a sympathetic character.
That would destroy the character.
That would destroy, and it would destroy the Poison Ivy ship. But with Hillis and...
Maybe that's better. Poison Ivy and Harley
Quinn. I think that one's almost too wholesome to be related to this. I forget the guy's name, Axion. The thing with Hillis and Axion is, yes, I do realize the author is going to bring this around, and that they are both capable of loving each other and actually appreciating each other. But a lot of the tantalizing bits, the part that's supposed to get you all hot and bothered, is her treating him like shit and him being like, "Feed it to me, mama. I don't care. Like, I'll do whatever you want. Yeah, step on my face." Like, that is what a lot of people.
Some people are into that.
I'm aware. I've read your comments on Bato. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. You can have your trashy comics, but I did not like those parts. It's not that part of the romance isn't for me. Now, obviously, it's where we're at now in the story. It's starting to come around. It's more of a mutual thing. Hillis is kind of giving in, and you also have the window into Hillis's mind that you wouldn't have in like real life when you're watching somebody get treated like this. You know that Hillis does like him, but she's trying to put up a front because she doesn't want to be distracted from her mission. And her mission is, of course, to break the cycle by dying her true death. And that sounds like a My Chemical Romance concept album as well. It's like, I've lived 7 lives and I just want to die my true death, but then I found love. Now I have a reason to live, and now I'm afraid of dying my true death. And I could get 12 tracks out of that.
I mean, maybe that's a good soundtrack to listen to while you're reading this.
Not the Black Parade, Helena. You got to listen to that one. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. That's the album. God, I said Helena. I forgot the album name of My Chemical Romance. What kind of elder emo am I?
Well, that's what happens when you get old. You start forgetting stuff. Which, maybe that's a good excuse for Hillis, because she seems to keep forgetting all of the past stuff that happened. We already went over this to death, but something I just needed to get out is, like, I can understand if they wanted to do like 3-4 loops. So like you get a second loop where she's like, what did I do wrong? I need to figure out how to get them to love me. But by the end of that one, she should be going, oh, these are just bad people. And so on her third loop is where she just goes nuts and kills everybody. And then fourth loop can be this one,
Yeah. I don't even remember the loops. Like, that's the thing. I feel like each life should be memorable if you're going to number them like that. Because she's always like, in my fourth life, I did this. And I think as a reader, you're supposed to be like, what happened in the sixth life? That's the only one she doesn't talk about yet.
Yeah.
And then there's also like cliffhangers where she's like, in my fifth life, I met him, and she's in a wheelchair, and Axion's like offering his hand to her, and you're like,
I think that's why they did that, was that they needed to be able to go, oh, she needs this information ahead of time so that she can do a thing, but it wouldn't make sense for her to have gotten that information in a past life if such and such hadn't happened. So we'll have a life where that happened. And so you just have to like have these extra ones in there so that you can like go, fourth life. That's when she had that happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they chose 7 because 7 is like a magical number. But that's also the weird thing, is because like I keep thinking, if you're doing the numerology thing, I would choose 7 as the life that breaks the cycle.
Right. Like she passed 7. That's over.
I don't know if 8 has another meaning that I'm not familiar with, but I guess there's, 8 bits in a byte. But maybe it's a power of 2 thing. Oh no, I'm getting into like full blown conspiracy mode. I was like, no, I can make it work. Yeah, 3 would have been good for the Christ imagery. 4 would have been good for the 4 families. In like each life, she learns a family secret, and then maybe in the 5th life, the 5 points of the star, she could put it all together.
Yeah. And the king is the 5th, right?
Yeah. But I I don't know. Seven seemed like a bit much. That might be the sort of thing that works better in a novel when you
Maybe.
can read about it. I feel like I would have retained the various numbered lives better in written form because I so her first life she's just Meek Mouse wants to give back the power. Second life, Meek Mouse wants to give back the power. Third life, he figures out the gem thing, starts torturing her with those. Fourth life, she winds up with the frost guy.
Yeah, was that 4?
I don't
Might have
know.
been.
And then 5, she gets rescued by Axion. And then 6, she kills everybody. And 7, I don't know what happened in 7. I don't know if I got those in order.
Did we not get to 7 yet?
Yeah, we might not have had that one yet.
They have been slow rolling them, which makes sense from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be timed with like the last life should be explored close to the end of the story.
Yeah. And something I think we should probably establish. We've been nitpicking a lot of stuff. Overall, I really like this series. There's a reason it's on the list.
You say nitpicking, and I guess I should mention the things I'm comparing it to, like where I'm like, it feels like Chainsaw Man, it feels like Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance. These are all things I love.
Yeah.
And I listen to and read on repeat. So I like when I say it's emo and edgy. That's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. That's what I expected. But I did genuinely not like the romance, and I don't actually think it's Hillis that I don't like. I think I'm putting an unfair burden on her by like comparing her to the Joker and everything. I just don't like Axion's weird like step on me mama thing.
I get where you're coming from. I don't really mind it.
It's not like bad. I think this is just a not my thing.
Yeah.
That's not my.
The main thing that I would say about that particular plot point of their romance is that I feel like it would make more sense for them to have not actually gotten together yet, for him to still be like seeking her out, because they hook up like pretty early on.
Oh boy, do they hook up!
Yeah, and not necessarily early on in the story, but like early on in like their, hey, we know each other in this life now, and then like 3 days later, it's like, yeah, let's do this.
I want to be clear. I don't think there's anything morally wrong
Oh no.
with their romance. I mean, Axion chooses to be that way, and she tells him to go away. But in her head, she actually wants him to stay. And so you have all the information. I don't think there's anything, we need to take apart there or anything that you shouldn't feel comfortable enjoying. But I just don't like Axion. He seems kind of like...
He's a simp.
Yeah, but he's also like not a character. What does Axion want? Whatever Hillis wants. What is Axion passionate about? Hillis. Why is Axion passionate about Hillis?
Yeah, I definitely get what you. Yeah, that's definitely all true.
It's just not the most compelling male lead we've had.
Yeah, I mean he's a vehicle.
Yeah,
basically. The compelling part of his story is this relationship in his family and like the weird stuff that's going on. His mom is like weird, and we haven't really gotten enough of the backstory there yet to sort of figure out what's going on. But something happened with his dad, and like, yeah.
That's a fair point. There is certainly time for Axion to develop, because the story has been so focused on Hillis that if it doesn't slow down on Hillis, it's going to end very quickly.
Yeah.
So we do still have Hillis, and we still have the kid. I forget his name. The
Mago or Mago.
Mago, yeah.
Mr. Magoo. Every time I read his name, that's what pops into my head. It's Mr. Magoo.
I think I read it as
Mago.
Mago. Yeah.
Mago is probably the correct name.
Mago. Mago.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the series is halfway through. Like,
yeah.
If it's going to be 160, 170 chapters, that would make sense. It's currently chapter 88, and it is on hiatus right now. And not like at the end of a season. It's sort of just like, they were like, we're going to take a break now. Although, yeah, they do have seasons. So chapter 47 was the end of season 1. Maybe 88 is the end of season 2, but they didn't really establish that.
No, it ended very abruptly. Like, I say ended. It went on hiatus very abruptly.
Yeah.
That was not a good point to go on hiatus. I imagine somebody needed to take some time off or something.
Right. But yeah, so I think there's plenty of time to sort of explore Axion more, more backstory for his family. Probably get some more backstory for the other two families as well. I sort of don't give a shit about the Parvanons. They early on, they sort of started to establish Christian as like, oh, he's going to be the secondary bad guy because we're going to take care of Diego, her dad, and then there's got to be more bad guys. But then he's just sort of like the punching bag. And then they're sort of setting up Axion's mom as sort of maybe more of a bad, but maybe not. Who knows? And so it's like, wait, what's going on? Like, who is countering Hillis? Like, who is going, oh, Hillis is doing a thing, and I don't want her to do that. We haven't really established that yet.
It's got to be Axion's mom, because she's remembering the past as well. So if she goes in with the same knowledge as Hillis, then she will have the opportunity to subvert Hillis, probably making use of the Parvanon guy, because I don't think the mom has strong powers of her own.
Right.
And I don't know. That's all okay. One of the things I mentioned this in, I think it was Villainous Turns the Hourglass, where the satisfying thing is supposed to be that she comes back and she's like super mean to the person that was mean to her in the previous life. But we didn't really see a ton of the previous life. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of feels like I'm watching somebody be mean to somebody who didn't do anything in front of me. Like,
I mean, they were mean to her in this life too, so
they were, but not to the extent she was mean to them.
True.
like not to the like, I'm going to tear you down and cut your head off. I'm going to bring you to the depths of despair and then end your life because you were kind of mean to me at a party.
She hasn't killed anybody yet.
No.
Not in this life, anyway.
No, but it's... I keep wondering if there's going to be a point where Hillis has to give people the opportunity to make amends, like Gabrielle.
That's one because so they've established in this go around that like, so Gabrielle was a bitch in all of the other lives, but they're sort of showing that like, she's definitely not a great person, but she was pretty much just going with the flow.
Yeah, she's more a useful idiot than anything. She wasn't the one feeding you gems or
Right.
actually harming you. And even Ricardo, I want to say is his name.
Yeah.
And I know
To
I
a
said
certain
that.
extent, he's very much my favorite thing though is just how confused he is about this whole situation in this life, because he doesn't remember the past lives. And so he's just like, why are you doing this? Because they hadn't started, trying to take her powers in this life.
Yeah. Well, and even in some of her memories, it seems like Ricardo, and I know I'm saying Ricardo with like the heaviest Pennsylvania accent. I can't help it. But every Spanish name is going to sound terrible coming from me. But he didn't seem to be aware of the plan in the
Yeah.
previous lives. He
At
didn't
least
know.
not until pretty late.
Yeah, he knew that they were. All he knew was like the dad found a way to transfer the power. He didn't know what it was doing.
Yeah.
Would he have, stopped it if he had known? Probably not, because he's a very weak individual.
Yeah.
But what if I'd like to see him get the opportunity. And if he fails, I'm okay with it.
I can see Ricardo and Gabrielle getting not necessarily redemption, but like a not bad ending where it's like, hey, just go away. Like, I'm not going to kill you or torture you or anything, but like, just go away.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd like to see a little bit more. I'd like them to get an opportunity to say, I don't want to be a part of that. Because I feel like they haven't definitively come down on the side of good or evil yet.
Well, they're not going to get a chance to say, I don't want to be a part of it, because the dad is done.
Well, they still have the opportunity. Like they're still caught in the evil people's plans.
Yeah, that's true.
So they still have an opportunity to choose a side.
Right. Ricardo is, what is it? Terzo from the Kalika.
Yeah, God,
Is
I don't.
I guess he's the main bad guy at this point, but it hasn't really been established that he's doing anything directly against Hillis. It's
He's
more like
too dumb.
he's just doing bad stuff in general.
Yeah, no, he's too dumb. Like the Parvanon guy, he's like, or oh no, Terzo and the Parvanon guy. Terzo is smart, I guess.
Yeah.
The Parvanon guy's not.
Christian is an
Yeah.
idiot punching bag, which is fine with me.
But Terzo's weak. He's
Yeah.
smart but weak. Though I gotta admit, like the should we talk about what the Kalikia power is? Because like that one
Well,
is not
okay.
like telekinesis.
So, well, that's the thing. So we haven't really seen the head of the family's powers. So it could be the same thing where she can teleport and, telekinesis kind of stuff and all that. But she's sick in bed. We've never seen her out of bed. But there are ancillary powers that other family members have. And I think that the main one is Mago. So he's the grandchild of Violetta.
He's the grandchild, yeah.
No, Violetta is the daughter.
Yeah, he's the grandchild of the head. He's
Renee is the head.
nephew of the daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
His mom's dead, right? They established that.
Yeah.
But he was like kidnapped and like kept somewhere, and so Hillis knew about that and rescued him. And he's the one who really is manifesting powers, but his powers are manifesting in this weird way. So there's two different manifestations. The really powerful one is his tears turn into jewels, right? And if you eat the jewel, you like get way powered up.
So the tears turning into jewels thing is a thing that comes up in Japanese myth and stories a lot. I would guess it comes up in other Asian stuff as well. Sailor Moon, it was the tear turned into the silver crystal. Sekiro, there's the Dragon's Tears. Like, that's a theme I've seen a lot. The blood turning into weakness crystals is weird.
So I feel like it wasn't established that it was specifically the blood makes you weak.
It corrupts you, I guess.
Something like that.
It can it weakens the family's powers, but it also mutates people and animals into monsters if you surgically implant it in them.
Which makes me think it's sort of like does an opposite thing. So like they put it in the monsters get more powerful. They give it to Hillis and she gets less powerful. So like it's the blood is sort of like a nebulous thing.
An anti-divinity.
The very concrete one is the tears make you more powerful.
But only if the tears are of true sadness. He can't just cut onions and manufacture those things.
I think they did establish, though, unless we didn't get to this yet. So Christian gets one of the tears. I think Terzo gives him one, and he takes it, and he's like, "Oh, I can feel this power. I'm so powerful." And then like he sees Hillis, and she just like swats him away, and it's like, "Oh yeah, okay, didn't make you that much powerful."
So you ate a tear, right? Well, I ate a tear too, and I ate a bunch of god juice. So I've been just shoving every mineral I find in my face.
But so something important to note is in this 8th iteration, there is no blood or at least not anymore, because Hillis rescued Mago, and no one wants to take his blood after he's rescued. Like his main family doesn't want to. It was when he was captured that they were taking his blood.
Oh, Terzo's going to bleed that kid dry if he gets his hands on him.
Well, so that's why in the previous lives they were able to get all this blood crystals to give to Hillis, because he was still captured and imprisoned in those lives. Yeah, thinking about it, Terzo, it's got to be Terzo as like the...
I think Terzo and the mom of Axion, they team up, and there might even be like a weird romance thing going on there. I don't know what the mom's deal is. The mom always shows up and she's always wearing like kind of like a Chinese style dress. Mm-hmm. And she's always smoking out of the long pipe. And so she's got that like, I don't know, that trope of like the businesswoman, like the madam almost, mm-hmm. She looks like. So you could tell she's like, she's a little different. She doesn't look like one of these like fancy princess ladies. She's up to something. And she also has a scent, the tobacco scent.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this? This is an unfair criticism. But it's just something I noticed and I always chuckled at. Can we talk about how after they have sex, everybody keeps talking about how much he smells like her? And like,
she's got a strong scent.
Yeah. That was a weird juxtaposition of like, what does it smell? Does it smell good?
Yeah, it's like roses and flowers in springtime.
But everybody's like choking on it.
Well, it's very strong. It's an overpowering scent.
I think they just smell like sex.
I
think it's just like the 70s in there.
Is that what the 70s smelled like?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not that old, but I've been told. Smells like a tab of acid and a sweaty hippie.
I think what they're going for is that, like, because they have been so intimate with each other, that her scent has sort of like, I'm going to use this word. It's not going to mean what it sounds like. It has impregnated him with her scent.
Okay.
So even though he can like go get a
might have
bath,
gone with
clean
infused, but you know.
Well, but that I don't think that quite.
No, that
because
doesn't
like
quite.
it's a thing that's going to stay with him. So it doesn't matter.
It's a sexually transmitted scent for which there is no cure.
Right. It doesn't matter that he can like clean himself up or anything. It's like people can still tell.
She marked him. I mean, that's. Oh God. Oh God. There is a particular set of I won't say fetishes, but thinking it, I'll say romantic tropes this story plays with. Oh dear, oh dear.
Well, is there anything else about the characters that we wanted to cover? I think I already said Christian. I don't care. Mm-hmm. If they make him an actual threat later, I will be surprised.
He's there to die.
He's basically been comic relief, even though it's not quite presented like that. It's not like, oh, this is funny. It's more like, yeah, good luck with that, buddy.
No, at some point, his ego is going to get the best of him. He's going to do something really stupid and reckless based on his emotion and his feelings of inadequacy, and he's just going to get himself killed. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to happen. That's a Ben prediction.
Well, I do want to touch on the art, but we could get into the rubric to do that. Before we get into that, I went ahead and asked for any comments or juicy tidbits or anything that people might have over on the Otome Isekai Discord server. I only got one response. This is from Runa. I don't think that's Rena. I think they're the same person, but maybe, I don't know. Runa says, the art is genuinely stunning, and I really like that even though she's being forced into a direction, she keeps fighting back. Like noticing this is out of character, or something is too convenient, etc. Feels better than an oblivious female lead.
Yeah, I did think people would enjoy that. I do think it's refreshing to see her just start absolutely bodying people right and left with violence, which is not. This is not the cunning political gamesmanship Otome Isekai. This is
one of my favorite character types for Otome Isekai is just girl boss, just like on top of everything, super powerful. Political or superpowers. I'll take either or both. I love to see them just like walking around, just like not taking shit from anybody.
Yeah. No, this is more evoking the emotions of like a traditional isekai, like a sword and sorcery isekai, where their guy gets reincarnated and he just has a particular set of skills and he fights injustice. Except in this case, she just fights everybody who ever wronged her.
Yeah.
And I do think the writing, like other isekais, the writing relies on the reader knowing what you mean. Like you could just say, like, this is a person who wronged me every day in my past. This is an abusive parent. This is an abusive sibling. And you're like, kill him. I've heard all I need to hear.
It's interesting because I read a whole bunch of different revenge fantasy manga and manhwa, and they really run the gamut from like, I'm just going to get revenge by having a way better life, to the complete opposite end of I'm literally going to murder everyone. And they both ends of the spectrum do it for me. This one's,
they both have their place, and like I say, that's the edge thing.
Yeah,
like there's a reason. Like if you look at My Chemical Romance as the example, like Gerard Way, the guy who writes all that music, is like a teddy bear in real life. He's just an artsy guy who like just likes to draw comics and put on eyeshadow, and but in the songs it's like I'm gonna kill 100 evil men before I can go back to hell, and like yeah, sometimes you just want to get it out.
Yeah.
I'm just creating art to get my catharsis.
I think Solitary Lady is a good middle ground as far as like revenge fantasy, because she's not really murdering everybody. She does a little bit in that one part, but for the most part, it's sort of like in the middle of I'm gonna be the best versus I'm gonna murder everybody.
No, I really like that in one of the past lives, she already did the I murdered everybody thing and it didn't work.
Yeah,
It just, and she even talks about it, like even emotionally, it didn't fix things.
would have made
And
me feel better.
Yeah. So, but I like that we got that out of the way. I like that now she has like a higher purpose. And so you still get all the stuff of her like bodying people right and left. And it's almost better this way because like she's already like, you're nothing. Even your death is meaningless to me. Live or die, I don't care. Just get out of my sight.
The ultimate revenge of you are literally nothing.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the rubric. But before that, we have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Does the rubric for this series include romance or not?
For me, it'll probably do better if it doesn't. I guess that's. I would say it's up to you. I could go with just the character section, and I could talk about the romance in that as part of a character interaction, or we could specifically talk about romance.
I'm really on the fence with this one because the romance doesn't really kick in for quite a while. But then when it does, it's a really central part for, 15, 20 chapters. But then also it sort of doesn't matter to the main story at all.
So my general thoughts on the romance, and we can maybe decide based on this if it's like a character interaction thing or if it's a romance thing. I've already talked about how I feel about Axion being kind of a non-character. The one thing I like about the romance is that they hook up. They explicitly, I mean, it's not depicted. It's not hentai or whatever.
Too
but
bad.
But they do. It is not any secret. They have had sex. They are in an adult relationship. It is reciprocal, and she is even starting to get jealous of him being around like other ladies, or maybe being out too late, and so I kind of like that it didn't pointlessly drag things out. That is a thing that happens in a lot of not just otome isekai, but romance in general. Of like the big payoff is supposed to be they get together, so that can't happen to the end, even though the chemistry kind of hit the boiling point way earlier than that. In this, when the chemistry hits the boiling point, they let it happen. I actually really appreciate that.
I agree with you to an extent. I'm on the side of I like my romances to be drawn out, but not to the point of being unrealistic. Because like I like the slow burn, I like the will they won't they, have it take place over a long time, but then like when you get to a point where someone is basically confessing and then the other person is like, oh, do they actually like me or not? Then I'm like, no, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, the thrill is in the chase, never in the capture. I get that.
Those are the ones where you get dense female lead syndrome.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is like, so when I was a teen, I was probably more into like the chase, like the because when you're a teen, you date. And even into my 20s, you date people. But I'm married now, so it's like I do sometimes like to see just couples who are couples working together and making it work. And because too often, like, it could feel like, okay, you got together, you confessed, you had the big like honeymoon thing, and then you died because the interesting part of your life is over. Nothing will ever duplicate that passion.
I'm wondering something here that maybe explains our difference on this. How many girlfriends have you had?
Serious, probably 3.
Okay. And besides Sirius, did you date very many others?
Yeah, here and there. I'd say probably a couple in high school.
Okay.
I had a serious girlfriend all through college, so I didn't do much in college.
That might be the difference then, because I had one girlfriend in high school and one girlfriend after I got out of college, and then I met my wife. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of and my wife and I, like, it was, within 2 months we were like, oh yeah, okay, we're the thing. So I didn't really have a whole lot of that, like, romance and...
Oh, you didn't like fall in love and break up and then fall in love and break up.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might be that I like to read about that because I never had that experience really.
Yeah. No, and I like to read about it too. I mean, that's why we come to the romance genre. But it is refreshing every now and then for somebody to be like, life doesn't end after the honeymoon phase.
That's true. Well, no, but see, that's why you always have to have the epilogue where there's babies.
I don't like the epilogue. It's cheap. I want it to be part of the story. And because I always talk about, because I'm old, I always talk about Sailor Moon, and like, it always pissed me off how they keep finding ways to like, oh, Usagi and Mamoru got together, and that's the end of the arc. Now they're going to be together. It's like, but he has amnesia, and so we're going to do it all again.
I mean, that's soap opera stuff right there.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, no, I wanted to see them together and doing stuff. Like, if Axion gets amnesia, I'm out. I mean, again, if he gets amnesia again.
It's not amnesia if it's a different life or the same life started. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to say we're not going to include romance in the rubric.
Okay, so we're using
the decision.
We're using the character one that I said I would post, and I didn't. Did I? I can't remember. I don't think I did.
I don't think you did.
So I will post this. I'll post the one we use.
All right. Okay, so to kick it off, we have content and ideas. And just a reminder, this is a 1 to 5 scale, and the different 1 to 5 have different point values. 1 being 1 point, going up to 5 being 14 points. And through all of those, they will add up to 100 points. So we'll go through each of those, give them a 1 to 5 score, and then add up the point totals to get to the final score. So content and ideas. Where are you going to rate this?
At this stage, I think I'm going to be generous and give it a 4, which is that there's original ideas and the plot points are presented clearly and the character arcs are satisfying and everything was developed. I don't think it's quite earned the 4 yet, but I think it's on track. The original ideas, like, I gotta say they're original to me, so that's a caveat here. I'm everything I have read in this genre is on this podcast. So the multi-reincarnator thing, I'm sure it's been done before, but I really like what they did with that. as much as I criticized like the numerology of it and how I get confused about which life's which, I think they're doing a good job of like revealing certain things at certain times. And when I really started to get into it was when other characters started remembering the past lives as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they're going somewhere with that. It's not just a gimmick. And if they stick the landing, 4.
I am also going to give this a 4. My caveat is I think that this could go to a 5 by the end. I've read a whole lot of stuff. I've read lots of other series that do multiple life reincarnations. Doesn't really matter that much. I mean, at some point you're going, oh, this is the hero's journey again. It's like, does it matter? Does the stuff inside of that trope do new and interesting things? And I think that they are doing that mostly in this series. And so if they can answer the questions that I think need to be answered by the end, I would probably bump this up to a 5. As it is right now, there's too many questions and too many things that haven't been explored yet for me to say, oh yeah, that's a 5.
Makes sense.
All right. Pacing and structure.
So again, I'm probably being a little generous, but I'm going to go 4. I'm going to go 4 mostly because I like the choice to have them hook up. I think that's good. I was never bored during this one. This one has a lot of stuff happening and it happens relatively quickly. There's not a lot of like dead chapters where you're just going to the donut shop or we're doing a town festival. And not that other ones we've read have been boring. I don't think I'd criticize anything of being boring, but I think this one, it keeps the pace up. I feel like a lot has happened in 88 chapters.
So I'm going to give it a 4. I actually have a bit of an issue with the pacing. For the most part, it has been good. The reason I wouldn't put this at a 5 is because there are parts where they seem to be retreading the same points multiple times. And it's usually not like, back to back, but it's like, oh, we did this, 14 chapters ago and we're doing it again. Like, what the heck's going on here? And that's not having been reincarnated. That's in the same life. So it doesn't happen enough to be a problem, but it is something that I noticed. And so, yeah, that's where I'm not giving it full marks.
Okay. Characters. This is a complicated one.
Yeah, this is pretty complicated. I think the biggest complication here is that there's, like I said, the outside world doesn't get explored at all. You don't have characters outside of this sphere of influence,
So I'm going with a 3. And I'm going with a 3 because there's like really extreme highs and really extreme lows for me. I feel like her relationship with some of the other family heads is interesting. Her relationship with Mago is interesting. Got problems with her relationship with Axion, but I think that's probably just me. Where I think it's a little underdone is her relationship with her own family. There's potential for this to go up. I think the villains are a little cartoonishly villain.
Yeah.
Like the dad constantly walking in and just demanding to assert his rights and stuff. It's like, nobody would do that. I mean, like after you have the shit beaten out of you 2 or 3 times, you probably stop walking in with such an attitude.
Right.
So yeah, he's just frothing at the mouth lunatic.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 3 as well. My primary issue here is that a lot of the other characters have not been explored enough to sort of like give us any sort of indication of why they're doing the things that they're doing, like what their motivations are. A lot of it is just like, I want power or something like that. And it's like, okay, but you haven't told me what the point of having power in this world is. If it's just to have power, then like that's not a great motivation. I mean, it does make some sense. There's plenty of people in the real world who just want power, but like, you know, and this sort of goes into the lower than 5 scores on the previous 2, which is like, you haven't really explored the world enough for me to understand why these people are doing the things that they're doing, you know? I know why Hillis is doing what she's doing because she's been wronged over and over again. And I know the plot with the king and everything, that makes sense because he got himself 8. But like, what's everybody else doing? They're just living their lives and going, I'm going to be bad because I want more money or something. Like, but you haven't shown me that any of these people need money. Like, they're all friggin' rich nobles. Like,
yeah, it's there's a greed, like generic greed.
Yeah. So again, like these are numbers that could go up by the end, and this is always the trouble we have with, you know, reviewing a series that is not complete yet, is that a lot of this stuff could change. We could get, you know, a lot of explanations for things that go, oh, okay, yeah, now that you've explained that all makes sense, that works. But because
I'm willing to do update episodes when they finish.
Yeah, we definitely will at some point. But like, you know, as a juxtaposition, when you're reading books, you know, you're reading an entire book and you're rating that entire book. And
everything's a trilogy or a 7-book series these
Well, that's
days.
what I was going to say. Is like a lot of times you get these ones where it's like, this is book 1 of whatever, and it's like, okay, so if you write an entire book and how good that book is depends on the next book in the series, that's a failure. Like, you can do trilogies, but each thing needs to stand on its own.
I would prefer it that way. I know people would argue not necessarily. Like, there's realities of, and this probably comes into play with like the web novels and the comics too. There's realities of publishing that make it so like, I can't afford to work on the series until it's like complete, because that might take me 5 to 10 years. I need the advance on the novel. So
right, and I don't think there's
hand them a book, but yeah,
I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. But like, it's a different thing from like book trilogies or whatever, book series, where it's like, no, this is a chapter we're reading. It's not done yet. And unless it's a series that sort of establishes itself with like long arcs that then go to another arc, you know, like,
this is kind of like the season should sort of stand on its own. The season should have like a conclusion.
Right, but not necessarily, because if it's a series that's like, this is going to be a series that completes in there's a story that we're telling here, that's different from like, you know, you might, I'm going to use this example of something you've never heard of. Lady Baby is a manhwa that's been going forever.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the wrestler turned singer.
I just saw today that they are announced season 7 is going to be coming out. So like,
that's a lot
for something like that, you could say, okay, we're going to read the first 3 seasons and we're going to rate it based on that. And that's fine, because this is going to run forever. You know, there are soap operas that just go and go and go. And those kind of things, I think you can rate those and be less apologetic.
Like, I
about
love
it.
The Simpsons, but I dislike most Simpsons episodes that have ever been made.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point, it's like, I like Star Wars, but I dislike most Star Wars movies
And so
nowadays.
and so for that, you're gonna be like, okay, we're gonna rate this arc. You know, like what does this arc do? Because it can
Yeah.
stand on its own. So for basically everything we've read, except for Villains Turns the Hourglass, these things are still ongoing. So at some point they will end. We will need to re-rate them. Probably gonna get higher ratings the second time around. Although a lot of them we haven't even rated at all yet. So, or rubriced, we have.
Yep.
All right. So should we move on to art?
Yep.
Art competency.
I agree with Runa. It's a 4. It's not the best I've ever seen, but it's certainly more than competent. It's good.
Yeah, I'm going with a 4 on this as well. It's they're not really doing anything that's like out of this world, but it's very competent. The way to get this up to a 5 would be if they were doing something sort of more out there and like interesting. They do the manhwa style, but they do it really well.
When the character designs are kind of like samey. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen these characters, and if you did not give me any context, and you put this up against, like, if you put her against any other redhead with long hair in any other manga, I'm not sure I'd know the difference.
Yeah.
Same with Axion. He's not a Duke of the North, but he's got big Duke of the North vibes.
Yeah.
You got the silver-haired guy with fox eyes, like, so like the execution though, really well done. That's what it's missing to me though. It's just a little bit more creativity.
Right.
To get a 5, and to be clear, like to get a 5, you're at the absolute top of your game. That is
Yeah.
like
Well,
more
and-
than
People should definitely go and read the descriptions of each point value that you or 1 to 5 score you have on here. Our competency is literally for a 5 is every frame is a painting. The art itself is worth reading the comic for. That's a high bar.
yeah.
I can tell you though, the series we're going to cover in 2 months will definitely be a 5.
Oh.
Spoilers.
Well, so let's talk about the very closely related category of artistic flourish. This is the like special effects category.
Yeah. So this one this is a tough one because I'm between a 4 and a 5 on this.
Oh, really? I'm at a 3.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job of sort of, framing the panels and having the effects of, and like, oh, we're at the Kalikas, and so you have this sort of like warm to hot, it's got the summer vibe going on, and then Inoden, and like, oh, there's flowers and everything, and just sort of like blending everything together with a theme that's based on whatever family is the prominent family at that for that scene.
Maybe I just didn't pick up on that. Yeah, maybe I just didn't pick up on the tones.
And I think they did a really good job with, anytime there's like magic or something happening, the effects for the magic are really good. They're not relying very much on, the 3D assets, or where they are, they're incorporating them in a good way. And I just think it's a really, it's competent. It's very competent in the same way.
Well, that's where I guess in the same way. I'm kind of going with, all right, you talked me up to a 4. I could do a 4. I'm looking at the definitions now. The one thing I'll say is like, this is like a 3.5. I mean, I'll give it a 4, but I don't think it really stands out from any other manhwa.
I can't really disagree with you there. I think what it's doing better than other manhwa is that it's doing it, at least I think it's doing it all the time.
It is very consistent.
Yeah, to me it's like basically every single panel they're basically drawing the character interactions, drawing the backgrounds, and then painting over it with effects.
Well, I will say the one interesting thing that maybe it deserves a little bit of credit for is they do change artists.
Yeah. Although I should say, as opposed to some other series where they change artists and it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? They did a pretty good job of
It was a smooth transition.
keeping the same style.
Yeah, the other artists tried to be really respectful of what the first one had done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's worth a little bit of credit. I'll go four. I'll go four, but I have complaints on the record.
Well, you talked me down to a 4. No, I'm in a similar boat. I don't think it quite reaches the level of like, oh, this is perfection. But I think it does a really good job. So as opposed to your 3.5 rounding up to a 4, I'm going with a 4.5 rounding down to a 4.
Okay.
Well,
So
personal preference, huh?
4. This I'm going to say the like I said, the romance not my thing. Don't think there's anything horrible about it or super wrong with it. It's just not. I don't know what this says about me. I kind of like, because I know it's like from the perspective of the girl, and like you relate to the girl, and it's like I don't know. I like to be daddied. I don't know. I don't know what this says about me. I like a strong Duke of the North. I'm one big broad-chested guy who's gonna tell me what to do. That's what I've learned about myself doing these comics. I don't know, man.
I can take it either way. I like.
Oh yeah.
I like seeing, people, capable people, loving capable people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair.
And you can be capable in lots of different ways.
Oh, so much innuendo.
Well, I was thinking specifically about like, a meek woman being capable because she is kind and cares for people, and then being taken care of by like a big, strong daddy Duke. Those are both capable people. They're just capable in different ways.
So, recommendation strength.
Well, I need to give a number for this? Personal preference. I didn't tell you.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you were. Are you at a 5?
No, this is a 4.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately, I think the thing that I'm looking at for criteria for a 5 for personal preference is when a series isn't updating, am I going, oh my God, when is this going to get updated?
Mm-hmm.
And I really like this series. I mean, it's a 4. It's a 4 for personal preference for me. But when it went on hiatus the second time, there wasn't a part of me after, a week where it didn't show up that I was like, oh God, I really need this to come back,
Yeah.
So that's gonna be my my threshold to bump something up to a 5 on personal preference. It's like, am I missing this? Am I like yearning for it?
Okay, recommendation strength.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. I don't know where this lands because I feel like anybody could read this, but it does have enough otome isekai tropes that it might be only for genre fans. I'm not sure.
I think 4 is a strong recommendation to genre fans, weak recommendation to general audiences. I think in terms of a general audience, we could say if you like romance, you probably wouldn't hate this. But
See, I don't know. I don't know that there's enough romance in this to be like, if you're a fan of romance, you should read this.
well, I say romance. I think I mean like the heroine type story gets lumped into the romance category a lot. And that we could talk about the sexism inherent in that maybe, but I've definitely read a lot of like stuff that is like paranormal romance, which is like really more just like a straight up urban fantasy that has a romantic subplot, but it features a woman, so it's romance. You know, that's a whole ball of wax. But I think like the readers of like the shoujo comics or the josei comics could come to this and like it. I think a general audience could find this approachable. It's not so otome isekai that it's like alienating. It's also not where I'd start.
I think genre fans, this is a must read. Even just for the fact that like it's so well rated by other places. Like if you read any other otome isekai, you should read this one. My big thing is like, yeah, I think it's accessible enough for a general audience. It probably doesn't transcend genre boundaries for you to be able to go, anybody should read this.
No, I think 4 is where it should be.
Yeah.
And 4, again, it's not bad. A 5 is like a you know, Romeo and Juliet type staple of literature, almost. So
I have so much trouble with these because like
the goal is that the 5 should be an exception. The 5 should always be an exception.
The
because you don't want to deflate it, or you don't want to inflate the ratings. You don't want to give everything 100%.
Right.
Like if something gets 100, it should be. I've never seen anything that got 100. So first off, like I've never seen. It's perfect if it gets 100. There is no room for improvement. Nothing is wrong. This blew your mind and changed your life.
Right. It's it just scares me a little bit when we rate these, because like if you look on like Bato, the ratings on so many of these series are just like so high. People are giving these 10s and 9s, and it's just like I can't. I feel like you're just rating it on emotion.
Well, and that's fine, because like this is a problem I have with Goodreads, is the world never came together in the age of online rating systems and decided what a rating means.
Yeah.
And so some people are like, this is my Goodreads account, this is my Bato account. These are my ratings based on what I like. If you want to know what I like, this is, this is a 10, this is an 8. But I've also seen people give like Beowulf in the Bible 1 star, boring. And it's like, well, it's, yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know why you thought it was going to be like a Dan Brown thriller, but okay. So I think our goal, at least with the rubric, if you ask me to make a rubric, my goal is to combine a little bit of did we like it with is it good? Is there any room for improvement? Sort of like dissecting the story and the art and just the medium. So there should always be room for improvement. I've never given anything a perfect 100.
Well, and like we said a bunch, like at the end of this, some of these 4s might go up to 5s.
Yeah. And the other thing is the
4s at the beginning can go up. The art and stuff generally is not going to go up at the end of a story, but
well, and it doesn't mean at any point anything we give it, it does not mean you're wrong for it being a personal 10.
True. Yeah.
You're allowed to love something that may have a legitimate flaw. God knows I do.
Well, with that said, should we add up the total?
Let's add it up.
So, I think we matched on these. All 4s except for characters, right? Which is a 3.
Yep.
So I think we're at 73.
Yep. Which I'd say is a 7 out of 10, which I would say, for me, is really good.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing where I thought that I would be at an 8, and I would have given it an 8 had I been able to give it 2 more points. I would have rounded it up to an 8. But unfortunately, at 73, I can't do that. The math doesn't allow it.
No.
But a 7 out of 10, that's good, right?
That's good. And I would say, like, at some point, if you really want to get, like, a statistical baseline, we can read bad Otome Isekai. Because, like, you're picking the top of the top. So, like, 7 seems like low for what we're doing. But
Ben, I already read bad manhwa. You would have to read bad manhwa.
I can do that.
All right. Well, last thing for rating, and this is a super secret bonus. Would we recommend this to Kermit?
No.
No. No, I don't think he would like this at all.
No.
There's way too much generic stuff in this. He would.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he'd make it 3 chapters.
No.
All right. Well, it's time to pick the next thing that we're going to read. And I have something super special for that. I got a recommendation from someone. Something I have never heard of before. So, not something I've read. So we'll both be reading it.
Nice.
It is, in fact, a full-on webcomic. It's on Webtoon. It's called This Isekai Maid is Forming a Union.
Okay. I tell you, that sounds like it has Kermit potential.
I hadn't really thought of it when Trover recommended it to me, but yes, I think if anybody is interested in this series and what we're going to cover in a month, they should also check out the next episode of the main podcast, because Kermit will have something extra special for people who are into maids.
He's pro-maid and anti-capitalism. So,
but yeah, so this series is ongoing. It's currently at 63 chapters. So not too crazy. But this is on Webtoon. I think I said that. Definitely not like anything else I've read so far. So we will be checking that out, and we'll see. It's
sounds good.
I wasn't able to find it. It's not on Bata or anything. So it's going to be a little different for me, at least.
I was raised in the era of everything had its own website. Back in my day, we didn't have platforms. You walked uphill both ways from site to site.
So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll be checking that out next month. And with that said, thanks everybody for listening. Before we go, I wanted to thank Sugoi Mart for partnering with us. Sugoi Mart is a retailer of Japanese snacks, drinks, toys, and merch. And they have a lot of cool stuff that you can't get outside of Japan. You can check the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout to get 15% off your first order, which also helps us out. And Ben, as a little bonus for you, I currently have a box sitting next to my front door from Sugoi Mart. So we're going to check that out next week.
Subarashi.
And you can let us know what you think on social media and tell us if you have a series that you want to cover, like Trover did. Check out our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com, where you can leave comments about these podcast episodes and also find other posts and reviews. On the website, you can find links to everywhere that you can find us, all our social media, which includes our Patreon, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. You can also just send me an email to Isekai Sensei-Sama at gmail.com. And please don't forget to rate us on your podcast platform of choice. It really helps us out and gives us visibility. And as I said, don't miss the main podcast. That time I got reincarnated in the same world as an anime podcaster. We do a lot of fun stuff on there. It's obviously different from the format we have for Heroine Addiction, but it's still a fun time, so check that out. And if you can't get enough of Ben talking about reading stuff, check out his other podcast, Words About Books. You got anything fun coming up?
Actually, for fans of this podcast, not for a couple weeks yet, but we will in July or end of June, July. We're doing Battle Royale by Koshun Takami.
Nice.
Classic, hyper-violent, not romantic.
And that's the novel that they made that movie off of, right?
Yeah, The Hunger Games. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they did make a very famous Japanese adaptation of Battle Royale.
When was that written?
I want to say late 90s, early 2000s.
That would make sense. So once again, thanks for listening, and we hope you had a good time. But for now, we got to put some eye drops in, or people will know I've been hitting the manhwa. All right, and did we decide Inoden?
Inoden, yeah, that's what I'd say.
The rest of them, I don't think, are too complicated. Forget, Calica, Calicia.
I said like Calicia, but I don't know.
Calicia.
Calicia.
Arvanon. That one's easy. And the first names are easy. Hillis, Diego, Ricardo, Gabrielle, Axion, Zenon.
They definitely all sound like vaguely European.
Yeah.
But not like the Europe that we Earth people know.
A lot of it is like Spanish.
Yeah, except for when it's Xenon.
I read that one ahead of time last night.
Well, it worked out. First take. One and done. Jeez. He is being very clingy right now. Okay, you gotta go, man. Come on. Well, out. Sit. He is like he has figured out that I am paying more attention to this microphone than him. So he is attacking the microphone. I don't know why he's like this today. Normally he will not come anywhere near when I'm recording, but okay. So.
I actually have one more thing. I have a super secret bonus recommendation. And I think it's pretty appropriate for fans of Solitary Lady who like the Step on Me Mommy romance of Axion and Hillis.
Okay.
I recently started reading this series called The Villainess Wants to Punish the Sadistic Prince. So this is a manga. The art is bad. I'll say that right away. It's not like, oh, this is terrible, webcomic art, but it's not good. But the art doesn't matter because it's hilarious. The main character is a Japanese woman who gets reincarnated into the novel. Same kind of trope, except in her original life, she was a sadist. Is that the right? Basically, she
likes to cause pain.
Yeah, she was into like BDSM and stuff like that, but she could never get men to play along with her.
She could never get a sub. Really? Really?
At least the relationships that she had, right? She wasn't really seeking them out. She had these fantasies of like, oh, I want to do this and that. And then her boyfriends were like not on board with that, right? So she gets reincarnated as this villainess and goes, hey, I'm the villainess now. I'm just going to do what I want. And so in the original story, the younger sister of the villainess, so the villainess is engaged to the crown prince, right? But the crown prince and his guard and his little brother and his advisor are all in love with the little sister instead. And in the original series, the villainess like torments the little sister because she's jealous. When this woman gets reincarnated, gets isekai'd into this, instead of going after the little sister, she's like, no, I love the little sister. You guys are the bad thing. And so she starts being sadistic to them. So not only does she get to fulfill her fantasy, but she's also protecting her little sister because those guys are obsessed with her, with the little sister, in a bad way. And so she's like spanking the crown prince, and the guard, his thing is like his nipples, and so she like pinches his nipples and stuff. And then the advisor is like, oh, I'm the best at talking and I'm so smart and everything, and she just like verbally owns him, and he's like, ah. And so like as we find out pretty early on, they're actually into it, even though they have to like act like they're not and everything. So I thought it was hilarious, and I think if you're into Hylas and Axion, you might find some interest in this.
If you're ready for that next level shit, they were a gateway drug.